Al, should we get into these questions about
Yeah,
Echoes
let's
of
get it.
Wisdom?
Let's do it.
Well, the very first question here is from MetaJack98. Where would you say Echoes of Wisdom is on the timeline, if at all? Well, there's your answer.
The answer is there.
Yes. I don't know. I need to refresh myself on which games are even in what timeline. I feel like I don't remember, to be honest. I,
It's hard to keep track if you're not
yeah.
looking at it all the time. Like it's a little difficult because when I think downfall, I also think of, and maybe I'm being dumb and not remembering. I also think of Wind Waker, where like Hyrule was flooded. So like, is that in the downfall timeline? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I don't know. My answer would have been before we got this news, like whatever timeline Link to the Past is in, because that makes sense. And
Yeah,
that's what
same.
happened. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and Metal Jack. I know as soon as you answered that question, like 8 people responded to you with news, like, "Oh, Nintendo just announced a timeline." So I didn't want to bury your question, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of an answer there. And also, let's answer his second question because this is a great question. Honestly, I think Tingle should be in a lot more important roles. Would you agree?
Would you agree, Andy?
You know what? I wouldn't actually. The key word there is important
It's
roles,
important. Yeah,
right?
that's what I was thinking too.
Tingle is great in his role, doing what he
Yeah.
does. He's like Beetle, right? Like Beetle is fine. He just shows up. He sells you things. It's charming to see Beetle kind of pop up game to game. Um, Tingle, if you think about it, like Tingle has had some somewhat important role. Like Wind Waker comes to mind.
Hmm.
Um, he's pretty important in that game. I guess he's not extremely important in Majora's Mask, but I mean, again, I think his current role is good for Tingle. I think that if Tingle would have been in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, he might have just been like a side character that gives you a side quest, just like any other characters in the game. But I think that would have been totally fine.
Hmm.
I think Tingle would have been a good substitute for Stamp Guy in Echoes of Wisdom. So that kind of role, I feel like. But do you want Tingle in your a Midda spot or like a
No.
Fee spot? No, you don't want that, right? Yeah. If you do want that, go play Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land. Because that's what you're gonna get is the equivalent of that. So no, I don't think that Tingle should be in more important roles. I do think that Tingle should be in more games. That I do
Yeah.
think.
That's kind of how I feel too. I would love to see Tingle in more games, but he is like permanently this goofy middle-aged dude that wants to be a fairy in my mind and makes maps. So like I just can't see him being in anything more important than that, and I think that's okay. I think he's great in the spot that he's in.
Yeah, he's just like a great kind of goofy, funny character that shows up and brings a little comic relief. So in his role, he's perfect. Now, like I said, I don't think you want to give him too much more important roles, but what he does, he's great. And
Hmm.
we're not done talking about Tingle yet. Josh asks, was Stamp Guy a good replacement for Tingle? What do you think,
No.
Al?
No. I wanted to like Stamp Guy, but something about him just really irritated me, and I would have rather had Tingle.
Yep, I think so. Um, I Stamp Guy didn't irritate me, but it was hard not to think when you're looking at him. Like, dude's flying a balloon. He's kind of weird. Why don't we just have Tingle?
Hmm.
I would love to see Tingle in the Echoes art style. Why don't we just
Yeah.
have Tingle? That's kind of
Yeah.
what my thought was the entire time. Um, I don't know. The keyword there is replacement. So I mean,
Does he really
he
replace
doesn't really replace
Tingle?
what Tingle may or may not have done in that game. I think it's clearly he was inspired by Tingle, so I guess the answer is no. I would have rather just said Tingle.
Yeah, same. I don't know what it is about Stamp Guy that really like bugged me. It's not even that he loves stamps. His music was really grating, and I don't know, just something about it was not my cup of tea.
Just had a weird vibe.
Just a weird vibe, yeah.
Yeah,
You get a weird vibe from Tingle too, but it's a fun weird vibe. So
that's fair. Well, you haven't played Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land yet, though.
no, but I've seen stuff. He's
Yeah,
definitely a weird vibe in those games.
you actually kind of feel bad for Tingle in those games, especially in Balloon Trip of Love. They're just ruthless to Tingle. Like every time an NPC character sees him, they're just like, "Oh, this disgusting little man just showed up," and it's like Damn.
Oh. He's like so delusional in his brain that he's like they're probably saying that because they loved me.
You got to play those games, Al. I'm telling you, they're something else. All right, let's go over to our next question. This is from Green Miner. Is Echoes of Wisdom better than A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds? So right away, let's amend this question to: do we enjoy Echoes of Wisdom more than A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds? Because better, that's a subjective answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty subjective. To which I would have said no. But since you amended it, I really do like A Link to the Past, but it's difficult for me to play. I kind of find it a little difficult. But Echoes of Wisdom is clearly easier, and it's not as challenging as a lot of Zelda games. So I would say I like playing it more than A Link to the Past, but I like playing A Link Between Worlds way more.
I'm gonna need like a couple more playthroughs of Echoes of Wisdom to properly answer this question. Um, my gut tells me I think I like A Link Between Worlds better than Echoes of Wisdom, just because it's a little bit more traditional. It's got the same kind of things going for it in a way. Like, it's got some freedom, it's got cool new items, great dungeons, a cool story, cool characters. So it's kind of met like Echoes of Wisdom there. A Link to the Past, I think, is just like so solid and like such a sacred game. I do think you're right though. It can be. It can be a little dry to play. I find a little bit. In like I don't know. A Link to the Past, I feel like, is just like so technically. You know what A Link to the Past is? This is gonna make so many people mad. If Mossies is listening to this, this might be my last ever show that I do on Zelda Cast. A Link to the Past is like the Dean Malenko of Zelda games. Do you know who Dean Malenko is?
No, I didn't understand this reference.
All right. There's like four
Is it a
people out there
hockey
that are going
reference?
to. No, it's a wrestling reference, actually.
Oh, okay.
Now, Dean Malenko was one of the best wrestlers in the world. Like, the best. He was like, this guy could do it all. He was a technical master. He could do anything. He was a smaller guy, but he could work with anybody and make him look like $1,000,000. This guy was such an amazing wrestler. The only thing that he really kind of lacked was like that it factor, that charisma. You know, that's something that makes a star. And I kind of feel like, for me, anyways, A Link to the Past just is kind of missing that like it factor too. Even though it checks all the boxes for me, I don't know what it is. It's just it might just be the game is just like a little dark and a little you know what I mean? Like, it's the colors don't pop necessarily. And I feel like that works for like Super Metroid, but doesn't work for Link to the Past in my eyes, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't,
Okay.
but I don't know.
I don't know if I 100% agree with you. I think it's like more like player error for me that I struggle to play with it. It's not because I think it's dry or anything. I just think I'm not. I watch people play A Link to the Past and like speedrun it, and I'm just like, how? Because I feel like the hitboxes are really small, and I need big hitboxes. I need not fast movement when it comes to like controllers and stuff. I'm not that great at like that kind of stuff, so I struggle with that game because I feel like you kind of need it. The puzzles aren't like, once you know the puzzles because you've been playing for the last 30 years, like they're fine. They're not challenging, but like the combat and like that kind of stuff is challenging for me personally, so that's why I struggle with it. I don't think like visually or story or technologically of its time that it's like dry or anything. I think it excels in all those things because it's A Link to the Past. It's just that I struggle playing it. That's the only reason I
want to
put
make
Echoes of
I
it.
want to make very clear though. I'm not saying that the game doesn't look great. I think it looks amazing. I want to make that very clear. It's just the color because it should be. It's kind of a dark and somber game in a sense, right? Like, it doesn't have that same kind of cheeriness as other 2D games, you know, like the new Link's Awakening or Echoes of Wisdom have, for example. So, difficulty wise, I don't think is an issue for me.
Comparing it to Echoes of Wisdom and A Link Between Worlds, like, yeah, it doesn't pop in color as much, but like I think that's just because it's a game of its time, and maybe they just couldn't deal with a lot of the colors.
Yeah, probably.
But it's still a very colorful and like vibrant game.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, and it is like It's almost like I can't explain what, like, because I've started A Link to the Past, like, sometimes you're just on your Switch and you're like, I got like an hour to kill, like, what should I do? And you're just like, for me, I just like open up like NSO or something and play some Mario Picticross or Super Metroid and I've started Link to the Past a bunch of times, and I never go back to it for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, because it really is like an incredible game, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So my gut is telling me that I think I would like. I think I would say to you, I enjoy Echoes of Wisdom more than Link to the Past, maybe less than A Link Between Worlds, but I need a few more replays to really kind
Mm-hmm.
of tell you that for sure.
That's fair. Yep.
Sage of Fire, who is your favorite character in Echoes of Wisdom, excluding Zelda, Link, and Ganon?
That's a good question.
Oh,
What do you
I think that's
think?
an easy question.
Oh, what's your answer?
Condi, for
Oh,
sure,
Condi.
for
Okay.
sure, Condi.
I was like, can I just do all of Scrubton? Like, I really like that the guy that goes just super dramatic because of the Mothulas. He's just like, I'm going to the vegetable patch in the sky. But I like
Hey,
all of the scrubs. They're so funny. Can I just choose all of them?
I mean, yeah, this is our show, Al. You can do whatever you want.
Okay, well, my favorite character is all of the scrubs.
What a cheap answer that is. I'm sorry, Sage of Fire, for that
Oh my
answer from
god, Andy.
Allison. Okay, let's keep going. Green Miner is back. Should Echoes of Wisdom have a different art style, like its own new art style, or reuse an old art style? And would Echoes of Wisdom have been good with A Link Between Worlds art style? So I'm going to amend that question a little bit. So I think the question is like, should Echoes of Wisdom have used a different art style?
Mhm.
Um, no, I don't know.
You know what's kind of funny is like, yeah, it was the Link's Awakening 2019 art style, but for some reason, it still looked so different. Like
Mm-hmm.
playing it, I thought it looked a lot different, and it felt different than Link's Awakening, and which is weird because it's the same art style, but I don't know, upgraded, better, prettier, cuter. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I think they look different too. Um,
So in
so
a way, it has its own art style.
yeah, I think a lot of that is just due to the movement, like we talked about in the first couple weeks
Hmm.
there. Like you could just move around a lot more in that game. I will say I'm glad that they didn't use the Link Between Worlds art style, because I'm not a big fan of that art style. I don't
I'm
think
a
it
big
looks
fan of
great.
it.
I just I don't like the models of that art style, and they look particularly rough, I feel like, in Triforce Heroes. So I'm
Hmm.
glad that they did not use that, and like I'm sure that it would have looked way better on the Switch than on the 3DS.
Hmm.
So I'm sure that would have been fine, but I really like the Link's Awakening art style, so I'm glad that they were able to bring that back for at least one more game. I don't
Hmm.
think you want to overuse this art style. That I don't think you
True.
want to do,
That's fair.
but
I think that's fair. And maybe this art style felt different because like there's a lot more characters and races and different like sprites than there were in Link's Awakening.
yeah, probably.
So that kind of added to the art style and made it more Echoes, like giving it its own like fingerprint instead of just taking Link's Awakening art style.
And I mean, like, this version of Hyrule is also very different, in terms of like geography than
Hmm.
Koholint as well, which helps. And it also probably helps too that you're seeing like reimagined places that you know from Link to the Past
Oh yeah, yeah,
in
fair.
in this style as well. Um, all right, let's keep it moving here. Next question, speaking of A Link to the Past, comes from Charles Xavier. Were you disappointed that the Desert Palace ruins were not accessible?
Mm, actually, no, I didn't really think about it that hard. I thought it was cool that the ruins were there.
You know what? I'm right with you actually. I read that question. I was like, no, I thought it was
Eh,
fine. Like, um, yeah, I thought that it was
maybe
fine.
maybe because like the
The
Eastern
Eastern
Palace is
Palace.
accessible, and it would have been cool if like other Link to the Past dungeons had been accessible. But I didn't really think about it that hard. I was just like, wow, this is cool. I love, seeing some of A Link to the Past ruins here and trying to wonder why.
Yeah,
But that's it. That's all I felt.
yeah. I kind of like I'm with you. I felt like everything we got in Echoes of Wisdom was fine. Like it was, I thought it was a cool bonus that you could go into Eastern Palace. I never was just like, I didn't go into Eastern Palace and just be like, okay, now I know I'm gonna get into Turtle Rock. Now I know I'm gonna get into Desert Palace. Like so I wasn't like, I don't know, I wasn't upset or anything like that. I was just kind of like, oh, like this is a cool little bonus to have. So, and it's not like there's not things to do in the Gerudo Desert either, which I think also helps. So no, I was cool with it.
Yep.
Okay. Toshi8385 asks, what did you think about how Echoes of Wisdom managed to have a semi-open world but was still able to keep the players going in the right story points? Unlike, oh, we got some shade thrown here. Unlike Tears of the Kingdom. Is that true? I do feel like Tears of the Kingdom guides you in its story.
It does guide you in its story. It just gives you too much access, too much freedom that you could do the story in any way that you want, and therefore, in my personal opinion, it kind of takes away from it. Whereas Echoes of Wisdom, it's pretty linear with its story. It still gives you some freedom, but it's not so much freedom. Like it still kind of guides you.
Yeah,
I would say a little bit more than Tears of the Kingdom did.
Yeah. I thought that Echoes of Wisdom did a really good job with having the open world and a really good job of guiding you. Now, I think that what Echoes of Wisdom did is they stuck, like, ironically, actually, to a more conventional, like, not first person, open world rather, storytelling, in that, like, you know, you can go and do anything you want on the map. Like, you could pretty much go anywhere, but when your main quest starts at, like, this spot, so when you go there, the main story of the chapter then it takes place. And so, like, and that's pretty standard for most open world games, where what Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild did is, like, yes, you can go anywhere, but when you activate that main quest, it's just like, it happens, but there's no consequence on anything else happening anywhere else in the world. It's just kind of like, now this one quadrant of the map is checked off, where, like, in Echoes of Wisdom, you have your open world, but if you go to Elden first, like, you're advancing the story rather than just, like, Elden region is now complete, and then, like, Lanayru is complete. Like, you still do that, but, like, when you go to those areas, it's still advancing the story, because you learn more about Null, you learn more about the rifts, everything like that, whereas Tears of the Kingdom was just kind of the same thing over and over again. So I feel like that actually gives me hope for the next open world Zelda game, because I feel like this was a nice middle ground to kind of meet, where you can have your freedom, but you also still have structure as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom had is their memory system, in which you could go and unlock these memories or these instances that happened in the past and see what's happening, and you could see it out of order. But if you have something that's happening in the present, like Echoes of Wisdom, or I keep thinking of Forbidden West, you have the story elements that you could go and choose whatever you want to do, and then once you, like, do those, it's like, okay, here's the next story beat, and you would start the next story beat. And I think if you keep clumping them together like that and not allow them to be out of order or mixed matched, or you find out something where there's, like, no consequence, like how you were saying you saw Sonya die, like, within the second cutscene that you saw, and you're like, who the heck is Sonya?
Right.
You know? Yeah, so I feel like I agree. I have hope for the next Zelda games, because we won't have that memory system again. I doubt. God, I hope not. They're unique to these games, and I think they should stay there, and I think we should learn from them and learn from what we did from Echoes and kind of build something in the middle.
I could see memories coming back, actually. I could see that.
No, my God, please, no. I'm done with the memories.
Well, the thing is, like, I don't mind the concept of memories at all, actually. Like, I think it gives you incentive to explore your open world, but they just have to be structured in a proper way. This isn't really part of the question either, but just a thought I had. I also feel like in the next open world Zelda game, I really feel like Nintendo shouldn't be afraid to take your freedom away for a little bit. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying, like, once you start this mission, you have to see it through.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be till, like, the end of the game, like, not the point of no return, but, like, when you go do a mission, like, let's just say it's the midway point of the game. Like, you have to start this, like, you will not be able to do other stuff until this is finished. And maybe once it's finished, the world is changed a little bit. I don't know, whatever. But, like, I feel like they were so concerned about making sure that the player had all of the freedom that they possibly could. They didn't stop to think of the downfalls of that, right? Which Echoes of
Mhm.
Wisdom tightens up. I feel like a lot.
Yes, I agree.
So yeah, good question. Um, Leslie Jacobson has another question for us here. Was Echoes of Wisdom more kid friendly to have it balance with Tears of the Kingdom? This is a great question, Al. I've got
Mhm.
like a lot of thoughts on this actually. What do you think?
I think so. I think I first of all, I think they were trying to come back with like a 2D Zelda game and see if they could do it, see if it was successful, and they found that, and I think that's great. But I did think that Echoes of Wisdom was like the challenges were a lot easier. I thought like if I was young, I wouldn't have had a problem with any of these challenges. I wouldn't have had to look them up or anything like that. So it felt like as an adult, I was like, maybe this is just a little too easy. Whereas Tears of the Kingdom's had its challenges that maybe like challenged me as an adult and more as a kid, you know? So I do think that Echoes of Wisdom is very kid friendly. I think the puzzles are much more kid friendly. I think the aesthetic is much more kid friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, compared to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which do feel yeah, a little bit more catered to an older audience maybe.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said. I guess I would say this as well. I don't necessarily think of Tears of the Kingdom as like a non kid friendly game. Like I
Mhm.
think if you're like a 12-year-old kid, you can play and beat Tears of the Kingdom no problem.
Mhm.
And I mean like what's the most popular game in the world? Minecraft, right? And kids like young kids play that and build stuff all the time. And like the concept
Mhm.
of Tears of the Kingdom is not that much different. And like yeah, like there is some challenging parts where like you fight bosses that are quite hard. I mean, obviously, like no kid is going to be going up to a Gleeok and taking it down,
Yeah.
but like you don't have to do that, right? Like the hardest boss that you'll probably fight that is mandatory in the course of the game, and when I say mandatory, I'll include the 4 dungeons in there.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know, what would you say? Like, maybe Colgera in terms of like getting the movement down.
Oh,
If
I
you're
was
a
gonna
younger kid,
say
maybe
Queen
Ganondorf.
Gibdo. Queen Gibdo's pretty rough.
Yeah, okay, maybe like, but like, I don't think those are insurmountable. Is my point by any
Mhm.
means, right? Like, I think if you're like a younger kid, you could still do that. Whereas I also do think that there are some sections in Echoes of Wisdom that are challenging. Now, not necessarily like combat challenging, but maybe puzzle challenging. Like, I remember being stuck on the stupid like when the water jets would shoot you down, and I was like, how do I rise up? Like, I just could not get it right. So like, um, I yes, like the Echoes of Wisdom is more, let's just call it like kid friendly. To me sounds dismissive, just like it's for a younger audience, let's just say. But
Mhm.
I don't think that Tears of the Kingdom is like, I mean, we're not talking about Elden Ring here, you know, like it's a pretty accessible game, I feel like. Now
Yeah,
the
but
art
like
style,
what
yeah, I could give you that.
I'm thinking of like an age range of like 6, 7, 8. And like the teenagers, I feel just kind of fall in the middle and they can be happy with the kid friendly and the adult friendly content, you know? Um, I'm thinking like Echoes of Wisdom is really good for the, like younger kids, like younger than 10.
I don't think so. I think if you're like a young kid, you're probably going to have problems playing Echoes of Wisdom just as much
Have
as
you
you are
seen
playing
what
Tears of
these
the
kids
Kingdom.
are doing on iPads and stuff? I feel like an old lady saying all this, but like
Okay.
they
Well,
are.
counterpoint. If they, I feel like if you're a 7-year-old kid and you can beat Volvagia in Echoes of
Uh,
Wisdom, you could probably beat any boss in Tears of the Kingdom. Like I think that. Like, you know what I mean? Like
okay.
if you can muster together like the right combination of echoes and strategies to do all the puzzles in the still world to get to where you need to be, you could probably construct something with Ultra Hand to get you from point A to point B. Like, you know, like I feel
Mhm.
like there's not that much of a divide between the two. I don't like there is a divide, but I don't feel like it's worlds apart, I guess.
Mhm.
And I could be completely off base. I don't know. That was my initial thought reading this question.
Okay. And to be honest too, like I don't deal with a deal. That's a bad word. I don't like hang out with a lot of kids. There's not a lot of kids
So
in my life. So like I don't know what they're doing in video games nowadays, but I definitely felt like there was much more ease in solving problems and puzzles in Echoes of Wisdom, and than there were in Tears of the Kingdom. Because there's like Tears of the Kingdom puzzles that took like us, like the bat one, that we were like, what the heck do you do here? And that took us a while to figure out. Whereas like with the Echoes one, you just use a bunch of echoes until you figure out the answer.
Yeah, but like so many of the puzzles in Tears of the Kingdom, though, you don't have to do. Right?
True,
like,
you don't
if you're at a shrine, you don't have to do it. And it's not like you can't cook to give yourself like more hearts if that's the issue. You can do that. Like, you can come up with, you can have like Lord knows how many meals.
I need to hear from a sample size of like 30 kids that have played both Tears of the Kingdom and Echoes of Wisdom to give me an answer to this question.
Allison wants to talk to your kids. Put the call out there.
Sounds so weird.
Yeah, she's got candy.
No.
Oh, boy. Hey, everyone. If you enjoyed this clip and want to see more of the Zelda Cast, make sure to head over to your favorite podcast platform of choice and subscribe. There are over 200 episodes in the vault that will provide you with hundreds of hours of Zelda content for you to enjoy. You can listen to us when you're on a walk, fighting Ganon, trying to sleep, whatever. And if you want to see these shows as they happen, make sure to head over to twitch.tv/the Zelda Cast, where you can watch our beautiful faces talk about Zelda every single week. Don't miss out, and we'll see you next time.